Good afternoon, everyone. You are listening to WCEG Network, WCEG TalkRadio.com. We are the worldwide community empowerment group. This is Veterans Today program. I am one of the co-hosts. Anthony Aiken is my other co-host. He will be introducing himself shortly. And today we also have a guest, which is a member of the WCEG team also. Valencia Stovall is, I hope I got the name right, is running for the Georgia 5th Congressional District, and she will be our guest today as we get ready to get started. Before we do that, the way that you can listen to us is through live stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can also go to WCEGTalkRadio.com. You can go to hashtag WCEG Network and Facebook also. In addition to that, let me let you know that the topics and opinion are those of the show guests and not WCEG Network. WCEG Network is a nonprofit. We would gladly like to have your donation. And our office number is 404-490-8646. Again, 404-490-8646. So let's continue with Anthony. Good afternoon, and how are you today?
How you doing, Herman? And all of our listeners out there, and just wanted to let you know today that I'm with my queen. We're in the car, but you know, you're dedicated, so you work it out. So we're here to support our guest and all of the listeners around the world. And I tell you, this has been a very interesting time. There are a lot of different things going on with veterans and that we need to keep them up to date on. So it's good that we also have a returning guest.
Yes, it is.
But Herman, that means we're doing something right.
That is true. So you just brought up we have to congratulate Penny, as you call her, the big kahuna. This is our 7th year. So
exactly.
We definitely doing something right.
They're doing something right. I mean, I can recall that December when we were all talking about it, we were so afraid we didn't even know how to walk. You know, but here we are 7 years later, and probably more than 100 plus guests. And it's all because of the vision that Penny Rogers had in putting together the WCEG radio at the time, but now with a WCEG network of radios. So Herman, so good to see you again. And let's introduce our guests so we can get on with
it. Valencia, would you give us an introduction? Then we'll move on to our show.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Aiken, for allowing me to come back and join you all again this year. So I'm Valencia Stovall. I am a candidate for the U.S. Congressional District 5, which is the seat that was previously held by the late Congressman John Lewis. And right now in Georgia, we have a leadership deficit in Congress. We need someone who's going to be bold, who is solution-driven, and can get the job done. And also have to have someone who's accessible. And I'm running because of, I have 8/30/30. So 8 years as a state legislator. I served from 2012 to 2020. I have sponsored and co-sponsored over a dozen bills that were actually signed into law. I have 30 years as a small business owner and 30 years experience as a community advocate. And my platform is very simple. It's the buck, the book, and the ballot. And so those are words I first heard from the late Mayor Maynard Jackson, who was the mayor, first African-American mayor of a major city and of the city of Atlanta, who my daddy actually served as his community liaison. And the buck is dealing with economic rejuvenation. The book is reimagining education, and the ballot is voter empowerment and government accountability.
Those sound outstanding. I mean, you can tell that you put some thought into it. which is very, very good. And because replacing someone like Congressman John Lewis, who had a stellar career, we need someone like you that can come behind him and take it to the next level. So how's the campaign been?
It's been coming along good. The main thing with campaigning is getting the word out. And so this is one of the ways by, being able to come on you all's show, the Veterans Today show, and being able to talk with your listening audience and let them know that today is the last day for early voting. And the next time you'll be able to vote will be on Tuesday, which is your primary election. And you have to pull a Democratic ballot in order to see my name on that ballot.
Well, I can tell you, I don't know if I can say this legally enough, but I'm saying it anyway. But my wife and I voted already at the early voting. So, it's a good thing to get out early and vote. I understand that they had some real good numbers of early voters. So hopefully that turns out well, because we know what the Republicans are trying to do with the redistricting and trying to bring other people back in and coming up with all kinds of laws where people can't even stand in line to have a cup of water, those kind of things. So I'm very, very happy that we were able to vote early and to assist you in that way.
Yes, thank you.
I'm definitely interested in drilling down a little bit into your theme that you went through, and I'm going to start with the vote.
Okay.
So veterans vote at a high level, and what I always talked about, Anthony and myself, is veterans voting smart and veteran voting for issues that affect veterans. So in my opinion, it's important to get out to vote. It's important to be educated about the issues and the person that's going to represent you. What are your thoughts on that? Well,
of course, voting is something here in America that's very important because it determines who's going to represent us, and especially represent our values. And I appreciate the veterans. I appreciate you all having your show that comes on a regular basis, to keeping the veterans updated and also finding resources for them. And that's very important. Part of the 3 Bs that I talked about, part of it is senior services and also veteran services and individuals with disability. A lot of times right now, there are always situations that are going on with our veterans, and you all have served and done your duty. And it should not be that when you decide to retire, either if you're injured, that we have to treat you less than we would a regular citizen or someone who's just coming here to America. And those services, whether it's healthcare, whether it's housing, whether it's just having a good quality of life, that should be at the top of the list. And those are things I definitely be fighting for when going to Washington, D.C.
Well, being behind Congressman John Lewis is a lot of big shoes to fill. But as you recall, maybe a year and a half ago, when then President Trump talked about the area that Congressman Lewis, the area is under his control. So you can see that some gentrification is starting to occur in that area, the Auburn Avenue area, all those kind of things. Do you see that may be affecting your vote?
Well, I don't think it's affecting the vote. There are some areas that were added in that weren't previously a part of it. So right now, with the redistricting, the Congressional 5 takes in all the parts of Atlanta. It takes in a portion of Sandy Springs, the North DeKalb area near Emory, Southwest DeKalb, and then it comes into Conley, portions of Conley in Clayton County, portion of Forest Park, College Park in Clayton and Fulton, all of East Point, all of Hapeville. So the difference is definitely some parts of DeKalb County and that Sandy Springs area. So I think that having someone in that position, because you do have, I look at it 3 different levels of constituents. You have high earners, middle earners, and you have low earners. And you have to have someone that understands that there are different needs on different levels, but then there are some things that are always in common on all different levels of your constituent base.
Totally understand. Thank you very much for that comment, because I think, voting is a right that we earned. And it's a shame that we don't have individuals to vote. Now, we saw what happened with Stacey Abrams as a result of the governor's campaign, that she should have won, but didn't win. But she mobilized so many folks to vote. Do you see a large increase for these midterm elections that you would see large turnouts?
Yes, we've already, seen some of that in the news reporting with large voter turnout. And it's usually, one issue that I've seen, and that's one of the reasons why I chose the ballot as part of my 3 points, is voter education. That's very, very important. Most of the time, like if you talk to the average person, they're not even realizing there's a primary election that's going to take place on Tuesday. So, starting with where we are now with our voters, and also educating our young people who are in school now with more civics related courses to help them to understand the importance of voting and why policies affect everything that we do. And having the right person in charge, or the right person that's going to be your voice, is essential. And I think that's what we're seeing now. A lot of people are voting, but it still needs to be more education for them, for government accountability and understanding what's expected of your elected official.
I have a comment on that. And also, I think voter education is important. And also understanding our system. Like you say, a lot of people don't understand the primary, the general election, and in between that you have city elections, you have county elections, and a lot of those you get low turnout because people, number one, are not aware of it, and number two, the people that are campaign to the group that they know that's going to get out and vote, so they can get votes. And so you have a large portion of registered voters in the public that's just not participating. And just to diverge from that, I also do work with AARP, and the statistic says that 59 point whatever, not even 60% of the registered voters in the United States vote. So back to a state level, how can we improve just the number of people that we get to vote? And I have one other question, but I'll ask it later.
All right, so my opinion on trying to get more people activated and understanding and being able to know how to research their candidates, because that's the other thing. Sometimes you may see someone on TV, or you might hear an ad and you say, oh, that's who I'm gonna vote for, but not necessarily going to research, on what is their platform and what is it that they're saying that's going to be something that you as the voter want them to be able to fight and advocate for you. And I think that, like I said before, having those civic classes, and most importantly, is identifying those things that kind of makes them where they can't sleep at night. Those issues that just bother you so that you just can't sleep at night, and being able to show them and the voters how that issue that they can't sleep at night, that they're uncomfortable with, is a policy issue, and it's determined by who you elect into office.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. Totally. I think we really need, I'm sorry, Herman, you had another question, but
no, go ahead.
I just want to say I totally agree with that position that you just stated, because that voter turnout, voter education, to understand the rules, as we say in the Army, rules of engagement, to ensure that you put in someone that's going to do the work. It's kind of disappointing to me, and I mentioned this to my queen on yesterday, that some political politicians, you don't hear from them until it's election time. And emails and social media is flooded with what to do. But I think there's something that they need to stay in touch with their constituents year round to ensure that they understand what their game plan is for their respective communities. You must be involved with the politicians who help your communities. And if you're helping your communities, you're going to uplift the entire community. So a person like you, Mr. Stovall, and everybody else that is dedicated to being our politicians, I just say to you that, continue to campaign all year, not just during the season. I mean, it's great to see you, but we need to know that you're accessible to the constituents year round.
Yes, most definitely. When I was served as an 8-year legislator, I stayed busy and active in my community. I served down in the Clayton County area. And so for me, year round, being in contact constantly with my constituents meant that when the election time came, I didn't have to work as hard because I was working hard all throughout my term of office. And being able to have those town hall meetings are very important. And that's one of my plans, is being able to form advisory councils to be able to keep me informed, my office and staff informed on those issues that are happening on the ground. I know what the issues are in Washington, D.C., but sometimes they're not the same issues that are happening on the ground and to individuals at that particular time. So having that advisory council is very important, and having regular town hall meetings to keep the people informed about what's actually happening and what things are actually going to be able to help support them in whatever needs that they have.
My next question is regarding the term down ballot voting, and because I have already voted for this primary, and so did my wife, and we voted by absentee ballot and took it to the drop box. But then when I went through the entire ballot, voted for everything, and I kind of stay involved, so I was able to make a decision on the entire ballot, and my wife brought her ballot to me. So, when she got past the major one, she asked me about the rest of them. So my point is, I know all people campaigning always encourage people to vote the down ballot vote and vote the entire ballot. My comment is, how do you encourage and educate people to do their homework and vote the entire ballot?
One of the essential and good things that we have is being able to have access to sample ballots. So by going to my voter page with the Secretary of State's office, you can actually see your ballot. You'll put in your first initial, last name, date of birth, and the county in which you're registered to vote. And then it gives you an opportunity to select your sample ballot. And that's a way of you being able to know before you get to the polls who's on there. And it gives you an opportunity to research those candidates and those issues, because sometimes you have ballot question issues that are also located on there. And so I think the more we're able to encourage our voters to be prepared before the election day, and even before you get into the latter part of early voting, just in case they want to be able to participate with absentee ballot. So I think, getting that sample ballot is very, very important. And even talking to other people that are more knowledgeable in the political arena is important as well. Then that way you'll know who you want to vote for. When you get there, you're just taking your sample ballot with you and you're just mimicking it when you actually are voting using the ballot.
Thank you.
I have a question. In Georgia right now, it's a hotbed right now, and the issues coming with the Republican vote for governor of Georgia between Perdue and Kemp. We've heard the president come to Georgia, I think about a month ago, the ex-president about a month ago, down in the southern part of the city of Atlanta, and talked about the sitting governor of Georgia not being in compliance with his wishes and that he should be voted out. Yet on the other side, you have Stacey Abrams, who's also announced from the Democratic side to run for office. How do you see this dogfight between the Republicans, either Kemp being pushed back into office by voting, or the new guy on the block who lost, Perdue, coming in now to fight? And we can ignore the other names like Herschel Walker and all those people on the Republican side, because we know it's going to be Perdue and Kemp. How do you see that playing out with voter turnout?
Well, definitely, I think that when it's a primary, this kind of goes back to voter education. When there's a primary there, you're going to end up having the top people that probably has raised the most money, that can be able to get their commercials out, can be able to send out mailers, but you still have other people on the ballot who are just as qualified many times, but because of limited ability to raise money, you might not hear about them, and you might not even know about them until you actually go to the ballot to vote. And you may see a sign, around, like in my case, I don't have the big money to be able to have spent with advertising on a lot on the radio, on the TV commercials, or anything like that. But I'm a very qualified candidate, but many people would not know about that. And so that's why I said, going back to what I said earlier about that sample ballot is very, very important, because you would then be able to see those names that you may not have heard anything about in the news. And it's unfortunate because it ends up being voter suppression, in my opinion, because you have those good candidates that are on there, and because the constituents or the voters only hear and see those ones on the news, on the commercials, or hear maybe on the radio or some other means, they just narrow in on that. And that's why you see probably a lot of people coming out for the primary, because they're just looking at the top of the ticket, those candidates that they've heard about the most. And so that's why I always encourage the voters to research, because just because they have the biggest mouths and the biggest money doesn't always mean that they're the best candidates.
One question, well, several questions. Number one, I think the answer is no. Can you take the sample ballot in the booth?
Yes, you can.
You can? Okay, well, that's great. So with that, then the some other veteran issues that in an equal rights issue is top of the list today. For example, the big one is Roe versus Wade. Mm-hmm. And if you were in Washington, how would you address that?
Well, that particular issue is one that we've been talking about for many, many years. And my opinion about that, first of all, is making sure that the constituents are knowledgeable about that whole process and everything that happened with it. You hear things about it was leaked, the opinion was leaked. What does that mean? The average person might not even understand that. And that goes back to making sure you're communicating with your constituents. And in my opinion, that situation, when it comes down to Roe versus Wade and the woman's decision to make, I think that decision should be left up to the woman, the father, if that father is present. And that decision is still left up to between them and their God, whoever it is that they believe in. Because when government starts dictating what a woman or a couple can and cannot do, and they don't have the resources in place to help support whatever that decision is. Like right now, we have an overcrowding with in the foster care system, and so we haven't addressed that. You have a lot of kids that are unwanted, and so if you're going to the process of forcing a woman or a couple to have a child that for whatever reason they don't want to have the child, and you don't have any mechanisms in place to make sure that child's going to be nurtured and taken care of, then now you've created a whole nother problem, that child becomes an adult who is not nurtured and not cared for. So it's a whole gamut of things that end up happening with the government deciding this is what you can and cannot do, and them not having anything else in place to be able to help support what that mandate is.
Okay. I live in the 6th district, and I lived in it for years, but I always make, regardless of the person that's in office, I always make sure that I make myself known. And I've had veteran issues and have them working on. It's the results is whatever. We keep fighting about dealing with disability claims, dealing with a lot of veteran issues. But I know most most of them have a constituent person, but just the veteran constituency. Would you have one?
Most definitely. That's what you all, is why I said that's why you have the advisory council to advise and say, hey, Congresswoman Stovall, you have a large number of veterans, which I'm pretty sure more than very positive, in the district. And also not just them, you have the spouses and the families of veterans as well that are affected by whatever services are provided for veterans or are not provided for veterans. So the answer to that is yes. I think that is important because that is a specific group that has had and continue to have issues with the federal government and even the state government when it comes down to services. Okay,
and to follow up with another current issue which affects families is the issue today of the shortage, in particular the shortage of baby formula. You have a recommendation on how this should be dealing with, how the people in power should be dealing with it at this time?
One of the things, anytime you have a shortage in major supplies, kind of like when you think back to the shortage that we were having with toilet tissue, cleaning supplies, all those things, especially when the pandemic first happened. Then you have a special department or area where the government has to step in to make sure that those essential items are produced and making sure that they are created and getting to the people that needs it. And it's no different than when we went to, we were looking at with the pandemic, that now we're still in the pandemic, and the result of that shortage in baby formula is because those supplies have not been able to leave those ports and get out into distributed by the trucks or the trains or the planes, however they're distributed out. And so being able to identify those companies that are the specialists in creating those baby formulas and the milk, and then not just that, whatever else is a supply shortage, and not waiting until the supply shortage happens, but that some things in advance are going to be an issue and they're going to be needed. And it was unfortunate that parents had to get to the point, of mothers and families had to get to the point where they had to dilute milk formula more than what they usually would dilute it. And even saying, okay, the woman now needs to start breastfeeding when she might not have been breastfeeding from the beginning. Of course, that's great to be able to breastfeed because you don't have a shortage in milk supply. But for those who had not, then they had to have another alternative. And what were they going to do with those babies that need that essential nutrition that's provided with that baby milk formula?
Thank you. And we just let me take a few seconds and let our listeners know you're listening to WCEG Network, Veterans Today. And May is Military Appreciation Month. And tomorrow is Armed Forces Day, and there are a couple of activities I want to let you know about. The first one is a salute to the benefit squad. It's for nonprofits, the veterans, and organizations. And this one is actually in the address is 78270 Mara Road, Jonesboro, Georgia. So it's in that area. And the time is from 12 to 3. I don't have a contact number, but it's Armed Forces Day and salute to veterans. And some of the organizations that will be represented is the Sons of Atlanta. That's Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 1183. Vet 22, Frontline Community Services, Vets in the Know, and my organization also will be represented. Veteran Heaven Veterans, that is my organization. And before we leave, I will give you our telephone number. And also coming up at the end of the month is Memorial Day. So there's one other event that's taking place. Also, this is American Legion, having a car giveaway, and that's on Saturday. And it's American Legion Post 264, Mableton, Georgia. And the event is on the 22nd, which is Sunday. And the telephone number is 678-358-8784. So that's a couple of events and activities that are taking place this weekend. And as Military Appreciation Month is May, and that's Memorial Day is the end of this month.
Yeah, I mean, it's good news that, this particular month has been designated for those that served, and along with their spouses and families, like me and you, our wives were a major part of our military career. So we need to give a shout out to them and to let them know how much they appreciate it. And for all of the people that served, to put that uniform on, that they served with honor and dignity and retired. Now, for those that had some issues, there are things that we can do. It leads you with certain guidelines to get yourself squared away if you believe that your discharge was not of the type that you wanted. So this is a month to be active. We've had Vietnam Veterans Day, we got Memorial Day coming up, we got Veterans Day coming, we got all kinds of days coming up. And right now, this month, we're talking about everybody, even the people in the Air Force. That's what you were in, right, Herman? Air Force, right? All those folks from the Air Force and the Marines and everybody. That means that we love you, and we appreciate all your hard work, what you've done to protect our nation.
Thank you, my frat brother. How you doing? One thing is veterans in our benefits that we earn is we are a special constituency, and I don't think the people that are in office now, for example, in the sixth, no matter who it is, in the fifth, even my congressman, in dealing with our veteran affairs, in the number one that I have experienced from my organization is our claims and the length it takes to deal with our claims. Sometimes it's up to 5 years. Wow. And so I let my representatives know at all levels. And I think we're encouraging, we're advocating that more veterans let your elected representatives know your situation, ask them to advocate for you at the state and in Washington. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's very, very essential. A lot of times, many times when I talk with my constituents, I would always tell them that I am not the expert in everything. And that a lot of times I only know there's an issue until, when it's brought up by the person that's affected by it. And I can't stress enough, as being a former legislator, the importance of the constituents, and especially those veterans, of staying in contact with your legislators. And that is right on the state level and on the federal, because there are state laws that are passed, several that I have supported over the years, that have made it easier for veterans to stay here in Georgia. And then on the federal level, with those claims that you talked about, letting them know, because it's like this: the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And if the veteran groups are definitely squeaking that wheel, or making that wheel squeak a lot more, then you will get a lot more things done. One of the things that have always perplexed me is in Washington, D.C., with so many people that are veterans that are serving in office, and with such things that we depend on with the military for being safe in America, that we still have issues with the Veterans Department. And so that's always perplexed me. I just could not understand that. We talk about, we appreciate our veterans, we talk about the freedom that we have here in America, but when it comes to action, it's not lining up the same way.
Yeah. Well, and it's really important because I was appalled recently just seeing in the newspaper and on the social media about the number of veterans that submitted claims. And I think the number was something like 800,000 that were just not even worked on. It was really, really embarrassing, and it angered me that things like this still occur. Yeah, I understand the pandemic occurred. I understand all that. And people, offices were shut down, et cetera, et cetera. But even with that case, 800,000 veterans in various stages of what they need probably will not get those benefits because they're going to go back into the kitty. As Herman said, it could go up to 5 years. And now we're talking about veterans who could be at a point of not even being around anymore.
Right.
They're being gone. So it's going to be very, very important for our legislators to understand, especially those that are veterans, to be our advocate to ensure that these things do not occur. Unfortunately, the VA system recycles incompetence. If you're at a facility as a director and that facility is 1, they'll move you someplace else where you got a promotion where that facility might be a 4. But you're carrying that same ethics with you of non-compliance, not working, not being a difference maker to make sure that families, veterans, and others associated with being a veteran are not affected. It's appalling.
Yes, especially like you said, awarding incompetency by moving them, saying, okay, this issue was brought up at this location, but we're gonna move you to another where it might not be as strong advocates over there. But still across the board, it's a disservice that's being done to veterans. Instead of resolving the problem, you creating a problem and making it worse. There's no reason for such a long time, as far as 5 years, on a waiting list to be able to get your services looked at, or whatever the situation might be.
That is true. And this was just a comment. I think as a representative, congressional representative, you really, this is my opinion, you got at least 2 different levels of things that you need to work with. On the local level, you need to communicate with the veterans and do whatever. Then in the national level in Washington, those appointments, the Department of Veteran Affairs, the top guys that is appointed by the president and that run the VA, it's 2 different issues. But if you a representative, it's it's on your plate to deal with both of them. So what do you think?
Well, most definitely, because you have the issues that are going on the state level, but you have those departments, and you also have like the Veterans Hospital that are run by the federal level, but are located in the different states. So you have to, like you said, you have to be able to deal with them simultaneously with that, because knowing that whatever the decision that's made on the federal level is what is going to happen on the local level, on the state level as well. And that's why I want to go back and emphasize something that you said earlier about the veterans advocating more and getting into a good relationship with your elected official on the state level and on the federal level. Because when it's coming in and you're on the federal level, you're hearing the people on the state level, the state representatives and senators saying, hey, we need this, we need this. And then you have your congressional representatives in the Senate and in the House saying the same thing. We need this, we need this. Then something has to take place. One thing about it, what I learned as a state representative, when it comes even to the budget, we decide on what that budget amount is. And I've seen instances on the state level where if a certain department didn't do what they were supposed to be doing, and their budget was affected. And all of a sudden, that particular department started getting on the ball of what they're supposed to be doing if it was a request that was made from it was the chairman of the Budget Appropriations Committee or a member of the Appropriations Committee. So I think that it's going to be key to continue what you all are doing with the different organizations, but even stepping it up some more. We maybe even having a meeting, a town hall, more so maybe, call with all the state elected officials that are in a certain area, and then being able to have them to talk about what these issues are, and even on the federal level, and asking them, these are things that are needed. Not saying that you all haven't already done, I know you have, but even stepping it up a little bit more and having them to advocate more. And I know that that's a challenge in and by itself, especially if you're dealing with veterans with PTSD, some that may be homeless, trying to get them because they're dealing with this issue. Now you're telling them, we need you to advocate. And they say, I'm just trying to get through with what's going on with me right now and what I'm dealing with currently.
You're right on point. And with that is an issue that we have is because there's a lot of veterans that we're Vietnam era veterans. I'm one. Anthony is one, and so it's the technology. The technology issue is a big issue. Number one, using it. The second part is the VA is transitioning to technology. It's not user friendly. It's not even function at the level that it should function. So those issues that I want on everybody's plate, all of the representatives.
Yes, and that technology is always a big issue, and it's a big hindrance as well. Because if everything is now going, a lot of the government departments are driving towards technology. And if the person who's supposed to apply for the benefits or reapply renewal, and they're not technology savvy, and you don't have any mechanism in place to be able to help assist in that, then that opens the door to be able to say, oh, they didn't want the services. Well, they couldn't have wanted the services if they didn't know how to go get the services. And you put a roadblock in front of them. It's the same thing even with dealing with senior citizens. The technology, they don't know how to use the technology, but they have to do their renewal of the Medicaid and the food stamps. And then if they don't do it, they're kicked out of that particular program. So making sure that the veterans are knowledgeable about the technology, and then for those who are not, having something in place where they can be able to go and get the service, just like you all have your organization. Why not give you all additional resources since you already are dealing with those veterans on a regular basis? and making sure that you are able to be able to get the support that you need to be able to help them with what they need.
Well stated. Well stated. We talk about that all the time, about veterans from our era not being technologically savvy, and needing to have some support, because it's too critical not to be involved. It's just too critical for you to say X factor cause you not to be involved, especially this voting, the simple right of just voting. I mean, when you have a city of Atlanta, it still gets me with Mayor Lance Bottom, when she had a runoff, and only 96,000 Atlantans took the time to come out and vote for such a top position that will affect the entire community. I was just appalled.
Yes.
Important that we get out voter education, get people out to vote. I mean, start at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
Kids need to realize when they become of age that they have the right to vote, and train them on early, so as they continue on in life, they will vote. That's important.
Yes.
One other issue on technology and veterans and senior citizens is, because of the pandemic, the last couple of years, it's really has affected. I know for a fact a lot of veterans. The VA changed their claim status. A lot of times they reduced it, or they made some changes in their claim status, and because of the pandemic, they weren't even manning in the offices, whether it was in Atlanta or Washington. So the veterans on the ground, for example, in Clayton County, until they didn't get their benefits, they didn't know what happened, because there was no communication. And the excuse the VA news is because we are working
remote.
And there's no one in the office. And so that's an issue that need to be dealt with. Whoever's in office should put it on their top agenda. And the other question, comment I have regarding on a national level, United States level, the issue of making voter rights permanent, which I mean would address the law of changing from 60 to 50 to pass legislation. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we definitely need to have it where we have the voting rights are permanent. It is very irritating to have to see where a lot of times the states are making changes, and it just depends on who's in office or who's in control. It has nothing to do with really making sure that every person has the right and access to be able to vote and making it easier for them to vote. It just depends on who's in charge, whether it's the Republicans, whether it's the Democrats, when it comes down to changes that are made in legislation. And we have the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that's there in Washington, D.C., and it needs to be passed so that it can be to eliminate a lot of things that the local states are being able to do. So as a state, they have certain sovereign rights that are given to them, through our Constitution when it comes down to certain issues. And because of that, you have many states that you've seen over the past couple of years, even starting back before the 2020 election for the presidential election, were making changes in voting rights and voter laws. And what happens when you have a local voting elections office that is consistently, the rules are changing. They're trying to keep up, but the rules keep changing. It makes it unstable for them, and it makes it unstable for the voter. And it's easy for the voter to get confused about where they're supposed to vote, what they could do when they go vote. And so it's a lot of things. So if you were able to stabilize that and make it plain and simple and leave it alone, then you talk about voter empowerment, people getting out to vote. You'll see more people being able to get out to vote because they now understand that it's something permanent and not something that is, okay, this new election cycle, they're going to come in and change it. The next election cycle, those legislators and lawmakers are going to come in and change it. If everybody's saying it's important that we don't have voter suppression, it's important that people are allowed to register, people are allowed to vote, and that process should be easy, then if both sides are saying that, then why not put the legislation in place to permanently allow that to happen?
Great.
Let me ask you this, just a side note. Do you enjoy being a politician?
Yes and no. So the yes part is having the ability and to be able to make changes and having a voice for people that normally don't have a voice and don't understand the whole process of how politics works. I enjoy educating my constituents, and even when I'm not elected, even now, I still host town hall meetings. I do different things to keep them educated, especially even being on WCEG. The part that I don't like is when we can't come to a consensus, and it's not about the people, but it's about individuals that want to have clout or want to be able to do things on their own, and they forget about the needs of the people. And so when that part gets cloudy in the political arena, that's the part I don't enjoy in being in politics.
Thank you. Thank you. The reason I asked that question because, you know, it's sometimes when you read about some politicians that were 35 years, I mean, that's a long, long time. So are they keeping up with the times, or is something that voters just tend to, well, you know, he's been there a long time, let's just keep him there, his nose clean, he's not a problem, et cetera, et cetera. But if you still have that passion and you still feel as though that you can add value to your constituency, then I applaud you 100%.
Yeah, and that's a decision that the individual elected official has to make, because there will become a time where you're not as involved or not as connected as you should be, and sometimes fresher ideas are needed, especially when you're dealing with fresher events or issues that have come about that wasn't the same as what might have been 10, 20, or 30 years ago. Right. And so that is important to be able to have that change up of leadership sometimes. Yes, you still need the wisdom with the process, especially when you're dealing with state politics and even national. But there comes a time where you have to have someone else that sees things a little bit different, because they might come up with a faster solution than if you're still thinking with the same mind frame of that's how we used to do it and that's how we're going to continue to do it.
Let me ask you a question that it happens. Someone has been in office 25, 30 years. They are chairman of committees. For example, the agriculture committee. It could be another committee. So if you replace that person, the party, whichever party it is, loses that committee chair. You basically start over. And sometimes you have the consensus are divided. Some say we should keep this senior because he or she is on the committee. Other people say we need fresh blood. So what do you say?
I say for the voters, look at what's going on in your community. If that person that's been in that position, whether it's a chair position or not, because remember now, even though the person is the chair of that committee, if the Democrats are in charge, they can place another Democrat in there that has the same values, hopefully, that could be able to chair that same committee. But I say to the voters to look at your community. Are you satisfied with what you see or what you hear? Are you able to have access to your elected official? If your elected official is accessible and they are responding and you see differences and changes that are happening, then you keep that person in there because they're doing what they're supposed to do. But don't keep the person in there just for namesake because they have been elected for a certain amount of time. And you see that a lot, not just on the national level, but even on the state level. Some people just been in there too long. But if they've been effective and the constituents, and not just a few constituents, but others are able to look, they're looking at their community. They see growth in economics. They see that there have been additional jobs that have been added in. They see as veterans that their services have increased and continue to do well up under this person being an elected official. They see the education system has changed and it's doing better, even though that person has been there for a long duration of time. And you keep them there. But if they have not been doing their job and you can see it blatantly, then you remove them out. But before you remove them, make sure that you are looking at the other people that are vying for the position to make sure that whoever you replace them with is going to be more effective. Or if not, you might as well have left the other person in there.
Okay, you got about 2 minutes to wrap it up.
Okay.
So tell people why they should vote for you.
Yeah, so listening to our interview today, hopefully that's enough to be able to convince you that Valencia Stovall is the best candidate for the U.S. Congressional District 5. I have the experience, I have the heart for the job, and that's the most important part. Go to my website, gostovall.com. It's GOSTOVALL.com. I'm on all the social media platforms. If you would like to make a donation, you can. It's not too late, but today is the last day for early voting. And the big day is going to be on Tuesday, May the 24th. And so make sure you check your voter status at my voter page to make sure you go to the correct precinct so that your votes can be counted. And thank you so much, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Aiken, for allowing me to talk with your listening audience on today.
Well,
Great
thank
job.
you.
Great job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Anthony. We are celebrating 7 years, and our leader, Ms. Penny Rogers. Thank you for 7 years of great opportunity and doing great things. And this is closing out 7 years, and our seventh will be last year for this season. Anthony and myself will be back when we restart in September. So everyone have a happy Memorial Day, and celebrate veterans. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.